I never planned to tell this story, but what happened still sits heavy in my chest. My name is Maribel Crow, and for years, I was the quiet reason my parents' manufacturing company stayed alive. I wasn't the face. I wasn't charming. I was the one building systems that actually worked: logistics flows, compliance tracking, vendor controls, emergency backups. When shipments arrived on time, that was me. When clients stayed calm during chaos, that was also me. My younger brother, Calder, was different. He laughed easily. He talked big. He loved meetings and hated details. Somehow, praise followed him everywhere, even when he broke things I later had to fix at midnight. Our parents, Gideon and Lorna, always said we balanced each other out. What they really meant was that Calder shined, and I held the ladder. The night everything changed, they invited us to what they called a family dinner. Candlelight. Wine. Small talk. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat and said they had an announcement. Calder was being named CEO, effective immediately. No warning. No discussion. I realized then this wasn't a family dinner at all, it was a board decision dressed up as love. They talked about vision. About growth. About Calder being a better face for the future. No one mentioned the years I slept in my office or the contracts I personally held together. Calder looked shocked, then proud. He raised his glass. Everyone waited for my reaction. I smiled. I even congratulated him. I finished my wine slowly, listening to my mother explain how emotional I must feel. Inside, something went very still. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't remind them of what I'd built. I made a decision instead. That night, I understood something clearly for the first time. This was the last time I would ever protect them from the consequences of choosing wrong. I had worked for my parents' company long before it became stable. There were many nights I stayed late without pay, fixing problems no one else wanted to touch. When machines broke down, I found solutions. When a client threatened to leave, I was the one who called, apologized, and made sure the damage was repaired. I didn't complain because I believed the work mattered, and I believed my family saw my effort. Calder was rarely around when things went wrong. He preferred meetings, lunches, and public talks. He spoke with confidence, even when he didn't fully understand the details. More than once, he promised clients things the company couldn't deliver. Each time, I stayed quiet and fixed it behind the scenes. By morning, the issue looked solved, and Calder looked impressive. People clapped for him. I returned to my desk. Over the years, this became normal. I handled systems, schedules, risks, and emergencies. Calder handled smiles and speeches. When something succeeded, his name was mentioned. When something failed, I was expected to quietly clean it up. My parents never asked how much time it took or how tired I was. They only asked if things were under control, assuming I would make it so. When they explained why Calder was chosen, they said he was better for growth. They said people trusted his energy. They said clients liked his confidence. What they didn't say was that I had built the structure holding that confidence up. They didn't say that without my work, there would be nothing solid behind his words. The favoritism didn't start that night. It had always been there. As children, Calder was praised for trying, while I was expected to succeed without noise. If he failed, it was learning. If I failed, it was disappointment. I grew up believing that being reliable mattered more than being noticed. That night, when I replayed everything in my mind, I realized how tired I was. Not just from work, but from being invisible. I had given my best years to protecting a company that didn't protect me. The decision they made wasn't just about a title. It confirmed something painful I had avoided admitting. I wasn't overlooked by accident. I was overlooked because they believed I would always stay, no matter how little credit I received. That belief was the mistake they never saw coming. There was one contract in the company that mattered more than any other. It was the Bramwell Industrial Supply deal, worth $780,000. On paper, it looked solid and secure. My parents spoke about it with confidence, as if nothing could ever go wrong. Calder even bragged about it to friends, calling it proof that the company was finally growing. What none of them understood was how fragile that contract really was. Bramwell did not trust our company easily. They had been burned before by missed deadlines and poor handling from other suppliers. When they first approached us, they asked difficult questions. They wanted proof, not promises. I was the one who sat through long calls and detailed meetings. I reviewed every delivery rule, every safety requirement, and every backup plan. I made sure nothing was left to chance. Whenever Bramwell had concerns, they came directly to me. They didn't ask for Calder. They didn't want speeches or big plans. They wanted clear answers and calm assurance. I earned that trust slowly, by being honest and prepared. Even when problems came up, I told them the truth and showed them how we would fix it. That honesty kept the relationship alive. My parents believed the contract was already secured. To them, it was just another signed paper. They didn't see the daily effort it took to keep Bramwell confident. Calder assumed his title and charm would be enough to carry things forward. He never asked for details, and no one forced him to learn them. I knew better. I knew the agreement depended on careful handling and quiet consistency. One wrong step could raise doubts. One missed detail could cost everything. The contract was not held together by luck or family reputation. It was held together by trust, and that trust was personal. As the CEO announcement settled in, I thought about Bramwell. I thought about the emails I answered late at night and the checks I double-verified. I understood something my family didn't. The contract was not secure because the company existed. It was secure because I was there. Without me, there would be no safety net. No one else knew how many small decisions kept that deal from falling apart. I didn't warn anyone. I didn't threaten anything. I simply carried the knowledge quietly. They believed the deal was locked forever. I knew it was balanced on a thin line, and that line ran straight through me. I did not walk out in anger, and I did not raise my voice. The morning after the announcement, I went to the office like nothing had changed. I answered emails, reviewed reports, and finished the tasks already on my list. No one noticed anything different, and that was exactly how I wanted it. At the end of the day, I sent a short and polite resignation letter. It was clear, calm, and professional. I thanked them for the opportunity and gave the required notice. I did not explain my feelings or my reasons. I did not accuse anyone. I simply stated that I would be stepping away from my role. Over the next days, I prepared my handover carefully. I shared only what I was required to share. Process files, basic instructions, and current task lists. Nothing more. I did not create new guides or give extra training. I did not stay late to make things easier. I followed the rules and nothing beyond them. Calder laughed when he heard. He said I needed time to cool off. He joked that I would be back once I realized how hard things were without me. To him, my departure was a moment, not a decision. He believed I had always stayed before, so I would stay again. My parents reacted differently, but not better. They told relatives and staff that I was leaving because I felt hurt. They said I was being sensitive. They framed it as an emotional response, not a professional move. That story made them comfortable, because it meant they didn't have to question their choice. I did not correct them. I did not defend myself. I let them believe what they wanted. I knew arguing would only make them feel justified. Silence, in that moment, was stronger than explanation. Inside, I was calm in a way I had never felt before. I had already accepted what this meant. I wasn't stepping away to prove a point or cause trouble. I was stepping away because I finally understood my value, and I refused to keep giving it for free. By the time my final day arrived, everything looked fine from the outside. The office still ran. Meetings still happened. Smiles were exchanged. No one panicked. That false calm was what made it dangerous. I didn't quit loudly. I quit cleanly and correctly. And that kind of exit does not hurt immediately. It waits, and then it teaches. After I left, Calder became the main contact for Bramwell. At first, he sounded confident. He spoke boldly about expansion, faster delivery, and bigger capacity. He promised timelines without checking the system. He agreed to changes without reviewing the risks. From the outside, it sounded impressive, but the details were wrong. Bramwell started asking questions. Simple questions at first, then more specific ones. They asked about compliance steps, backup plans, and quality checks. Calder answered vaguely. He used general words instead of clear explanations. When he didn't know something, he delayed his response or changed the topic. The difference was noticeable. Emails that once took hours to answer now took days. Small mistakes began appearing in documents. Delivery dates were shifted without explanation. Bramwell noticed the pattern. Their tone changed from friendly to careful. They stopped assuming things were handled and started double-checking everything. Calder felt the pressure quickly. Instead of admitting what he didn't know, he tried to cover it. He sent long messages filled with promises but light on facts. He spoke as if authority could replace preparation. It couldn't. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Calder. His voice was casual, almost friendly. He asked how I was doing and joked about the workload. Then he asked a question he should have already known the answer to. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because it was no longer my responsibility. He called again later, this time sounding less relaxed. I still didn't respond. I let the silence speak. Each unanswered call shifted something. The balance he assumed would always favor him began to tilt. Bramwell followed up with more requests. They wanted clear confirmations, not reassurance. Calder struggled. Meetings became tense. He was no longer the confident voice in the room. He was alone, and it showed. From my side, I watched quietly. I didn't interfere. I didn't warn anyone. I didn't step in to save the situation like I always had before. The distance I kept was deliberate and lawful. That was the first real crack. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a small break in trust that grew wider with every unanswered question. For the first time, Calder had to stand in the room without me holding the structure together. It didn't take long before problems started showing up inside the company. Orders were delayed. Small shipment mistakes became frequent. Paperwork that once passed inspections now came back with warnings. Staff members looked confused and unsure about decisions that used to be clear. Nothing collapsed all at once, but the cracks were spreading. My parents noticed. At first, they blamed stress and adjustment. Then they blamed Calder's workload. Eventually, they ran out of excuses. That was when they reached out to me. My mother called first. Her tone was calm, almost warm. She asked how I was settling into life after leaving. Then she slowly shifted the conversation toward the company. She mentioned issues casually, as if she were sharing news, not asking for help. She spoke as though I was still part of the solution. My father followed with emails. Short messages. Direct questions. He asked where certain reports were kept and how certain systems worked. There was no apology in his words. No reflection. Just assumption. They spoke like I had stepped away physically, but not mentally. I read every message carefully. I felt the old habit rise inside me, the urge to explain and fix. That instinct had guided me for years. This time, I stopped myself. When I finally replied, I kept it polite and simple. I thanked them for reaching out. I told them I was no longer involved in company operations and could not assist. I wished them well. That was all. The response shocked them. My mother sounded hurt. My father sounded annoyed. They reminded me how much the company meant to the family. They spoke about loyalty and responsibility. What they didn't mention was respect. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I repeated my boundary calmly. I had made my decision, and I was honoring it. That moment was harder than walking away. Saying no to my own parents felt heavy. But I also felt something else, relief. For the first time, I chose myself without explaining why. They had believed I would always step in when things went wrong. They believed my silence would never last. That belief was built over years of me putting their needs first. This time was different. I wasn't punishing them. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was simply no longer available to be overlooked. Choosing self-respect meant accepting their disappointment, and for once, I was willing to live with it. It didn't take long for the full consequences of my absence to hit. Bramwell Industrial Supply had been patient at first, but now they were clear. They sent a formal notice. The contract was being withdrawn. $780,000 gone. It was official. Their trust in our company had run out. The final straw was a compliance review Calder mishandled. There were small errors I had always caught, details I had carefully checked and double-checked. Dates were off, forms incomplete, procedures skipped. Nothing catastrophic alone, but together they added up. Bramwell didn't see the effort behind the contract, they only saw mistakes. They decided the risk was too high and pulled out. At home, the news hit like a wave. My parents were silent at first. Then came the panic, the calls, the frantic questions. How could this happen? Calder tried to explain, but his words sounded hollow. He could not hide the truth. The contract was fragile, and without careful hands, it fell apart. The office buzzed with tension. Staff whispered about what went wrong, trying to find someone to blame. Calder looked frustrated, but he didn't have the answers. Each mistake stacked on the next. He had been confident at the start, but now that confidence seemed misplaced. I watched from a distance, quietly. I did nothing to accelerate the collapse. I didn't interfere. I didn't warn anyone. I simply let things follow their natural path, and that was what made it sharpest for them. There was no sabotage, no revenge. Just the simple reality that the work I had done was indispensable. The financial hit was enormous for the family firm. Losing that contract meant lost revenue, shaken client confidence, and extra pressure on every project. They had assumed it was secure, but their assumption had been wrong. I did not gloat, I did not call or correct them. I stayed out of it entirely. That silence carried more weight than any argument or intervention ever could. For the first time, they saw the truth. The success they had enjoyed for years depended on more than appearances. Without careful planning and attention, even the strongest-looking deals could crumble. And this time, they were left to face the consequences of their choice themselves. A few weeks after the contract collapsed, my parents reached out. Their tone was different now, less confident, quieter, almost careful. They offered me a role back in the company, but it wasn't a real position. No title, no authority, no power to make decisions. It was just a consulting role, under Calder's control, with vague responsibilities. Calder called it generous. He told me they were trying to make things right, that they needed my guidance, and that I would be helping the company recover. He spoke like it was an honor, like I should feel lucky to be asked back. I listened carefully. I didn't respond right away. I read the emails again and again, noticing the small things: no apology, no recognition, no respect for what I had done. They still didn't see me as an equal. To them, I was someone to lean on when things got hard, not a partner. I thought about the years I had spent building the systems that kept the company alive. I thought about the nights I had stayed late, the clients I had saved, the contracts I had held together. And I realized that none of that mattered to them. What mattered was the image Calder could show, the face they preferred, the control they thought they had. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't explain my worth or list my accomplishments. My silence was intentional. It wasn't cold, it was quiet strength. I knew that responding would only give them a chance to spin the story again, to frame it in their way. I wanted them to understand the truth without me having to say it. By staying quiet, I made it clear that I was not coming back on their terms. I was not available to prop up a failing system for them, and I would not accept being treated as less than I was. They wanted me back, but they wanted me on their conditions, under Calder, with no recognition. My silence said more than any email could. I didn't need to fight, I didn't need to explain. The message was simple: I am done being invisible, and I am not theirs to control. That quiet refusal was the loudest thing I could do. After leaving my parents' company, I didn't rush into another job. I wanted something different, somewhere I could use my skills fully and be respected. I joined a new firm in the same industry. The leadership there was competent, professional, and willing to listen. They valued results, not appearances. For the first time in years, I felt my work would be recognized, and I could make decisions without explaining myself constantly. I threw myself into the new role. I organized systems, improved processes, and built trust with clients. I worked carefully, just as I had before, but now I had authority. People respected my expertise and relied on my judgment. The company started growing steadily, and I felt a sense of accomplishment that wasn't tied to anyone else's praise. Then came news that Bramwell Industrial Supply was looking for a new partner. I knew immediately they weren't calling my parents' firm. Calder had mishandled everything too many times. The client needed someone reliable, someone they could trust. That someone was now me. I took the lead with Bramwell, carefully explaining procedures, timelines, and safeguards. They listened. They trusted me, because I had earned that trust before and continued to demonstrate it. The contract went smoothly, and the partnership strengthened. It wasn't revenge. I didn't call Calder or my parents to gloat. I didn't undermine them directly. I didn't make a single move to hurt anyone. I simply focused on doing my job well and letting the results speak for themselves. The satisfaction came quietly, from knowing that my parents' company had lost the opportunity because they had chosen appearance over substance, and I had chosen myself over them. The difference was obvious. Where my parents' firm struggled without me, my new firm thrived with me. Where Calder stumbled, I delivered. Where they had assumed I would stay, I had left. The outcomes were natural. The reward was not in humiliation, but in truth being shown clearly. I learned that the most powerful form of revenge isn't anger or malice. It's stepping away and letting people face the consequences of their choices. I didn't have to touch a knife. I didn't have to speak harshly. I simply stopped holding things together for them, and in doing so, I created something far better for myself. Time passed, and life moved forward in ways my parents and Calder hadn't expected. Calder remained CEO of the family company, but he wasn't the confident figure everyone once thought he was. The mistakes piled up, decisions went wrong, and the company struggled to recover from the lost contract. Clients were cautious, staff were uncertain, and the energy in the office had shifted. He had the title, but the strength to lead had quietly slipped away. My parents tried to defend their choices. They made excuses, argued with staff, and pointed fingers at circumstances beyond their control. But the financial strain was real. They could no longer hide from the consequences of choosing Calder over me. Every missed opportunity, every delayed shipment, every upset client reminded them of what they had lost. The weight of it wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was there, quietly pressing on them every day. For me, things were different. I had freedom. I worked in a place that valued my skills and respected my judgment. I made decisions without fear, and I could see results of my efforts clearly. I didn't need approval or praise. I didn't need to fix mistakes that weren't mine. The contrast was obvious, but it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like clarity. I thought a lot about what had happened and what my parents and Calder had lost. Being overlooked, being underestimated, and being replaced didn't hurt because of them, it hurt because I had let it happen for so long. Walking away taught me that value isn't measured by titles or approval. It's measured by understanding your own worth and having the courage to step away when it isn't recognized. There is no bitterness in the lessons I learned. The consequences that came to my family were natural. I didn't seek them, I didn't push them. I simply stopped holding everything together for people who refused to see me as an equal. Being chosen last doesn't mean you are worth less. It means you are strong enough to leave, strong enough to protect yourself, and strong enough to let life reveal the truth on its own. That understanding, that quiet confidence, was the reward I could never have earned by staying. It was complete, and it was mine.